We're almost a week into training camp. I'll reveal the top story next on the Grant Cohn Show. Welcome to the Grant Cohn Show. I'm Grant Cohn. This is my show. It's 8:45 in the morning. I didn't stream yesterday. I was tired. It was Saturday. I figured people were doing things. But 8:45 on a Sunday morning, let's definitely talk 49ers. They're not practicing today. They have their first day off of training camp. Where do they stand? It's an interesting training camp. In the past, it was very Trey Lance-centric. Now it's Trent Williams-centric. We've often said that the 49ers Super Bowl window is really the Trent Williams window, because once he isn't on the team anymore, the Niners are in big trouble because they haven't really planned for his departure. Like, they're insulated at every position except that one. And I'm not really sure why the Niners were so casual about offensive tackle the last few years. It seemed like they knew something that we didn't. They had a plan. Maybe they had an assurance from Trent Williams that he would keep playing, but I don't know. Maybe they thought he was a really nice guy, a really swell dude, but now he's holding them hostage. And it's just business, because teams do this to players all the time. It's hard to knock what Trent Williams is doing. And how is this going to affect the team? At practice, they can't run the ball without Trent Williams. Maybe Kyle Shanahan could build a gimmick offense while he's out, if he holds out for regular season games. That's built around. Remember in the Super Bowl when they went spread shotgun constantly? They could do stuff like that. 5 wide receivers, McCaffrey split out. Purdy gets the ball in the shotgun, takes a little shuffle step and throws a pass in half a second to someone running a 2-yard route, and everything is a variation of a screen pass. I'm sure Kyle's a genius, so he could do that. We've seen him win games that way in the regular season, but that's not the 49ers offensive philosophy. It's a gimmick offense. It's not what they want to do. It doesn't take, full advantage of the weapons or the quarterback, who's going to be one of the highest, if not the highest paid player in the league in a year. That would be a shame if that's what their offense is reduced to in this season. But Trent Williams can do that to them, and that's why he's in a really strong position. I don't know what he wants. I'm guessing he wants a fat raise this year and guaranteed money this year and next year. And I'm guessing him and his agent have told the Niners what they want, and if it was doable, they would have done it by now. And now it's getting complicated. So let's take this. We thought Brandon Ayuk was serious. Turns out he's holding in. Maybe he'll sign soon. We'll talk about him later. But with Trent Williams, he could miss all of training camp. He could miss a game or 2 or 3 of the regular season. Like, he doesn't play full seasons anyway. From his perspective, he doesn't want to practice. So this is all good. Instead of him just like not showing up to practice, now he has a reason not to show up. It's a financial dispute. It's not that he doesn't want to practice. And then instead of him missing 2 or 3 games a season with an injury, he just misses the first 2 or 3 games because of a financial dispute, which he's justified in, because he's the best offensive lineman in the league and they're not paying him as such. So now you got to go back and look at your win-loss prediction that we all made when the schedule came out. Week 1, at home against the Jets. I think most people had that as a Niners win. Are you sure the Niners will beat the Jets if Trent Williams doesn't play? Is that a win if Trent Williams doesn't play? Because that team has a better defense than the 49ers. Forget Aaron Rodgers. The Jets have a better defense than the 49ers, statistically. At least last year they did. This year, it's probably just as good as the Niners defense. What is the Niners offense going to do against that defense with Robert Saleh and Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner, CJ Mosley, if they don't have Trent Williams and they can't run the ball to the left at least? Because the whole foundation of the Niners offense is Trent Williams and George Kittle blocking together on the outside zone, or Trent Williams and Aaron Banks blocking together on the inside zone. That's the whole foundation of the offense. They get movement at the point of attack. Defenses have to honor that, and running backs can cut back off of that if defenses over pursue. Kyle Shanahan can call play action passes off of that. It's all based off that. So Trent Williams isn't there. You're not getting movement at the point of attack with Kittle and Jalen Moore. Not against the Jets. Maybe against Minnesota week 2, maybe against New England week 4, but week 1 against the Jets, week 3 against the Rams, are those wins for the 49ers if Trent Williams doesn't play? And I'm sure he's thinking that, and that's his leverage. Do you want to lose games that you should win, are favored to win because you're being stingy with Trent Williams? That's the position they're in when they're like this one more Super Bowl or bust year. It doesn't seem like Trent Williams is as motivated. So if he's threatening retirement, if he's threatening holding out for a few games, that can't happen for the 49ers. They have no choice. They have to give him what he wants because they didn't plan for this. They planned for Brandon Ayuk. They would not let Brandon Ayuk put them in this situation. Not happening. Which is strange because like I'm watching training camp now. He's not out there. Offense is fine. Jennings, Kittle, McCaffrey, Debo, Juszczyk, Purdy. Like even without the offensive line, the passing game is fine. Now maybe if it was live action, Purdy be getting sacked every play. But in camp, there's more than enough weapons, even without Brandon Ayuk. More than enough weapons. But the offensive line is the worst in the league right now. The idea that Jalen Moore could protect Brock Purdy's blindside in a real game is unfair to Purdy and Jalen Moore. And ridiculous. I don't understand the Jalen Moore experience. Nothing against Jalen. They drafted him. They said, guard. And they've only played him at left tackle. He's not a left tackle. What is the point of putting him there? Does it help him? Does it help the team? It's a weird thing. I would have to think that if Trent Williams doesn't suit up week 1, that Jalen Moore would... Hold on, let me take it back. I was going to say that they would get someone else to play left tackle, like someone better. Like, I don't know, David Bakhtiari or Donovan Smith or anyone who's played. But do they know Kyle's system? Because that's the most important thing. Not how good you are at football. Do you know Kyle's system? And Jalen Moore knows Kyle's system. He's been here. So that they actually might go with that. And again, isn't it right up Kyle's alley to go into the season with the worst offensive line in the league? So he can show how smart he is. Like, oh, I can't win with Jalen Moore at left tackle. Watch me. And I'm sure he can win a bunch of regular season games with Jalen Moore at left tackle because he has a good defense and he has a bunch of good weapons. But like, at what point does McCaffrey get hurt? At what point does Purdy get hurt? You're not protecting your investments at all. You're not setting up your 2 best players on offense, your 2 most important players on offense to succeed. You're setting them up to have a really hard year. Why? So you can look good? So you can win the coach of the year? Anyway, this is like years of bad dieting, years of not addressing the offensive line, years of having imbalance in your roster coming back to bite them right now. All because Trent Williams wasn't as nice as the Niners thought. I'm not mad at him. He's taking care of himself. Teams do this to players all the time. Let's talk Kyle Shanahan. A lot of times in these shows, we talk about like, is this the year Kyle grows? And shows growth, maturity. And I think a lot of different people have different metrics for what that would look like. I think it's all tied into the offensive line to me. And I think this problem is sort of showing that he hasn't grown yet. The fact that Trent Williams could hold out and it would just expose the fact that the Niners have not only the worst offensive line in the league, but one that's could really derail the whole season. Just one guy going out. Other teams don't put themselves in that situation, even like coaches who've coached with him. So look at Sean McVay. Sean McVay has the same offensive philosophy as Kyle. He went to a Super Bowl, lost. And since then, he's sort of changed his offensive philosophy. It's not as much of a run first thing. It's very balanced. They pass the hell out of it in LA, and they have a really good offensive line. They invest in the tackles. They spent a lot of money on guard Jonah Jackson this offseason. He grew. So a lot of people like to say, oh, you know, Kyle owns Sean McVay, or Kyle's smarter than Sean McVay, Kyle's more clever than Sean McVay, whatever, fine. Maybe as an offense, maybe when it comes to drawing up plays, Kyle is more clever. But when it comes to building a roster, I think McVay has a more serious template. Kyle would disagree. He'd say, well, everyone says I have the best roster in the NFL, and we're on paper better than the Rams. But if Trent Williams doesn't play, then all of a sudden that juggernaut roster you put together is completely useless. Again, so Sean McVay gets it. He has a Super Bowl winning, borderline Hall of Fame quarterback. And what that guy needs, he needs weapons. He has weapons, but he also needs time. He needs to be healthy. The Rams can't win without him because it's not like McVay's system is good, but the most important component to that team is the quarterback. So keep him healthy. Okay, now look at Cincinnati. Same system. Zach Taylor. This is all coming from the Shanahan tree. And the pure Shanahan philosophy is that the scheme is the most important thing, even more than the quarterback. But they have Joe Burrow. And he's been to a Super Bowl, and a lot of people think Joe Burrow is elite, top 5. He's one of the highest paid players in the league, and he was hurt all of last year. And so what do? They got a bunch of new offensive tackles this offseason. They got Orlando Brown, Trent Brown, and Amarius Mims, believe. Not messing around. That's growth. Hey, we have a really good quarterback, a franchise quarterback, a Super Bowl quarterback. He needs to be healthy. We need to protect our investment. We're paying him so much money. We don't need to have all the best weapons. We have a lot of good weapons. He needs to be upright. We need to have 3 good offensive tackles. How about that? Niners have one who's not there. So Zach Taylor gets it. That's a guy who's lost a Super Bowl. He's trying to change. Andy Reid lost a Super Bowl with a terrible offensive line and a bunch of good weapons. He immediately changed. He immediately figured out, like, okay, all right. I have a great quarterback. I have the best quarterback. What does he need? Does he need all the best weapons, or does he need a good offensive line and some time? A good offensive line and some time. If you have a great quarterback, the system isn't as important. The weapons aren't as important. Just give him some time. He'll tear you apart. He just won a Super Bowl throwing to freaking old Travis Kelce, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and who's that tall white wide receiver, 84, whatever that guy's name is. I mean, total stiffs. Kelce's not a stiff, but he's not exactly 28 anymore. Andy Reid figured that out. Most of the good teams have figured out you need a good offensive line. Detroit's figured it out. The Rams have figured it out. Cincinnati's figured it out. Philly's figured it out. What good teams are still trying to prove that you can win a Super Bowl with a bad offensive line? The Niners, Miami. These teams that, I mean, I like Mike McDaniel, but he's got a bigger ego than Kyle. He's kind of like jokes about it, but he thinks he's better than Kyle. He thinks he's smarter than Kyle. He might be, but those are two teams that are working around bad offensive lines, and it's not helping either of their quarterbacks. So that's what I want to see from Kyle, man. When are you going to figure out, like, your system is fine? Your system is really if your quarterback is Jimmy Garoppolo, then yeah, like, what's the point in investing in a bunch of offensive linemen? He's not good. He's not that much better than the backup. You need to prop him up with playmakers and get the ball out of his hands quickly anyway. You don't want him holding the ball longer than 2.5 seconds, no matter what, even if he has time, because his decision-making is terrible. I understand that. But if you have a top 5 quarterback or a top 10 quarterback and you're going to pay him $55, $60 million a year, how do you let this happen to the offensive line? I don't even see how you can offer a quarterback that kind of a contract if you don't even. It's like getting a Lamborghini. I'm gonna go car analogy here. It's like getting whatever, like the most expensive car, a Lamborghini, and not having a garage. Just parking it on the street every night. It'll be fine, probably. I think it'll be okay. Like, no, it's not going to be okay. You shouldn't buy that car. Even though you can afford it, why don't you first get somewhere you can put it? And the fact that Kyle, he just went on the TK show and explained at length why it's stupid to want to invest in the offensive line. Like, well, would we have the best roster? Would we be favored in every game if we just invested in the offensive line? Like, All I know is that last year you went through 4 quarterbacks. You had so many injuries at quarterback. That was 2022, not even that long ago. And what was your response to getting all those quarterbacks injured? Did you A, invest in the offensive line, or B, get more quarterbacks? You brought in Sam Darnold. You got more quarterbacks. You asked the league to change the rule about how many quarterbacks you could dress on game day. That says all you need to know about you. Like, you're not, the universe is telling you what to do, Kyle. It's trying to let you have the epiphany that Andy Reid had. Man, the offensive line is super important. Keep your quarterback upright. And you're like, no. We just need 4 quarterbacks. We'll be good. You're fine. It's my system. Look at these weapons. Anyone could do this. And that's a big oxymoron, because you're trying to tell us that Brock Purdy's the real deal. We all think he's clearly better than Jimmy, and yet you're not really acting like he's worth investing in. You're going to give him money next year, we assume, but are you going to give him an offensive line? That's that's a more important investment. Teams can make, you could give Brock the extension, call it a 4-year, 5-year deal worth $57-8 million a year, but he could have very little guaranteed money after the first 2 years. There are ways for teams to get out of it. They could give him the money, give him no offensive line, watch his play decline, blame him, and get rid of him. I mean, is that not what the Giants did with Daniel Jones? Gave him money, no offensive line, gets hurt, his fault. He's going to be gone. The real investment, the real meaningful investment the Niners need to make for Brock is getting an offensive line. And that would show that Kyle finally understands, you know what? My system is great. People love it. It works, but it only take me so far. It's about the quarterback. Most important thing, quarterback, and then my system. Sean McVay has figured that out. Zach Taylor's figured that out. Andy Reid has figured that out. System is not primary. You make decisions on what's best for the quarterback if he's that good. And Brock's looking like he's that good, right? Like, the longer he has the ball in his hands, the better the outcome. You want Brock to extend the play. If you give Brock 3 seconds to read the defense and make a decision, good things are going to happen. If you force him to make super fast decisions like the Chiefs did in the Super Bowl, all bets are off. He's kind of small. He doesn't necessarily see you want him to get outside the pocket and you want him to have time. And until Kyle figures that out, I feel like he's almost at odds with his quarterback. Like, you need to embrace him. Real OBJ CDT says, has McKivitz improved, or is he still frail and weak? Pads haven't gone on yet, and I'm sure his entire family's watching right now. So I'm going to wait before I say that he hasn't improved. But when did McKivitz improve? He's been McKivitz. He's like Nordstrom Rack McGlinchey. You know? It's like, oh, is that a McGlinchey? No, it's a McKivitz. I haven't heard of that, but it's like, it looks like the exact same thing. You know, you go to like Marshall's and they have like off-brand stuff. Like, it's not Polo. It's like, it's something that kind of looks like Polo with like a guy on a horse. It's like, oh man, that's $12. I mean, sure, it's not Ralph Lauren, but it's nice. You can't really tell the difference. It's a fraction of the price. That's a McKivitz. It's a Nordstrom Rack hire. Purchase. The Ryan G. Kenzie show says, a bucket of range balls for you. Yeah, I'm just holding on to my 9-iron. It's nice to have. You know what I mean? Thank you very much. Although these days in this economy, out here in the Bay, bucket's $15 all day. Although I get free buckets at Lake Chabot because I'm a member, because I'm a serious golfer. I've been telling people I'm getting into golf and they're like, oh, are you good? I'm like, no. What? No. In fact, I suck. The worst. Brock Purdy. So the Niners are starting probably to realize how expensive Brock Purdy is going to be next year. And there's very little left that he needs to prove. Jordan Love just became the highest paid player in the league. And he started one season and was good for half of it. And then choked in the playoff game. He was good in the first play. But then he choked against the Niners. Highest paid player in the league. So what Brock's resume is far better than Jordan Love. There's nothing the Niners can say. So either they have to invest in him or not. I just think it's interesting that they haven't treated him like a franchise quarterback yet. They've said he is, but they've also acted like he's replaceable. Don't tell me you think a guy's your franchise guy until you actually give him an offensive line. So what happens if Brock gets hurt this year? Does that affect the 49ers offer? Do they look at him differently? Do they blame him for not avoiding the rush? Just seems really strange. Like, this is his year to make the most money possible. This is his contract year. They gave him like a big hurdle. All right, now do it with no offensive line. Let's see if you're really that guy. It's really strange. Knowing Kyle, I just can't buy that he is all in with Brock until he gives him a freaking offensive line. You know, Sean McVay really loves Matthew Stafford because they're doing everything they can to extend his career as long as they can. No question about that. But then you look at what the Dolphins did with Tua. Yeah, they gave him the extension. He'll have some guaranteed money for a couple of years, but are they investing in their offensive line? Do they really want Tua, or did they have to give him the extension? That's kind of the way I look at the Brock Purdy situation. Is there a little bit of like from Kyle and McDaniel? Like, yeah, I don't want to mess it up. It's working right now. And of course we have to pay Tua, but like I could do better. I don't really want to be locked down to this quarterback because on another team, he'd barely be top 15. Watch Tua and Brock this year. Watch McDaniel and Kyle. They are a little too arrogant for their own good, and it expresses themselves in their offensive line. And they get quarterbacks hurt a lot, except for last year. Last year they didn't, and now they're like, okay, we're good. Let's just, I don't know. Gibbles Gaming says, human to human, your negativity is poison, brother. Thanks, Gibbles. Appreciate you watching. Robert L. Booker 2 says, Iggy, Niners offense needs both Trent and BA. You reported that Debo can't get open against our DB, so we need BA. Trent has more leverage. Thanks, Kyle Levy. Yeah, but Debo does have 8 catches. He's had so many targets. I mean, the thing is like, Kyle's supposed to be the best at scheming people open, right? Didn't Devondre Campbell say that? Everyone says that. Somehow Kyle has gotten the reputation as being better at scheming people open than Andy Reid. So scheme people open. Like, what do you need Brandon Ayuk for? You're the star. What do you need a guy to beat man-to-man coverage for? I thought you did that. I thought you could design the play with the man beaters in them, all the crossing routes. I don't understand. You have all these weapons. You're a genius. Ricky Williams says, clear they value the interior O-line, but fail to get depth at OT position. I think McGlinchey scared them at that pick, but it's their fault. You shouldn't stop swinging for that blue chip OT. What's the answer? I do think McGlinchey scared them. But yeah, like that's just a bad draft pick. It was clear that they thought he was a left tackle, that they'd take him, put him at right tackle. He played both at Notre Dame. He could play right tackle for a year or two, and then when Joe Staley retires, you could move McGlinchey over to the left. And then they got him. They're like, man, this guy can barely play right tackle. Never playing left tackle. So it was just a bad draft pick. He's one of these old school right tackles who can't hold up in pass protection one-on-one, needs a tight end, needs a chip, needs help, but is a good run blocker. And that's McKivitz, although he's not particularly good run blocker. He's just out there on the field, making people go a little bit further, not take direct routes, but like go around. You have to like go around him. He's a human obstacle. Sometimes gets his hand on you. Should we talk Brandon Ayuk? So, last thing. Brandon Ayuk. It's Sunday, July 28th, and he still hasn't gotten his extension. Monday, July 29th, pads go on, presumably. And either he's going to be out there or Ricky Pearsall is going to be out there. It seems like if he's not out there tomorrow, it's time to wonder, is this going to get done? Or is he going to have to suck it up and play on the 5th-year option? And what's that going to look like? I would expect that maybe at some point today there's news from Adam Schefter tonight The Niners and Brandon Ayuk have agreed to an extension. That's the normal timeline. Brandon made it seem like he was upset and that it wasn't normal and things were going to go weird because of all the comments he made this offseason. But if you ignore all that stuff, they're right on schedule for him to sign this extension today or tomorrow. And in retrospect, I think all the angst that we got that he expressed the last few months was angst. And not just that, I think he liked the attention. He said he wanted the attention. I think early in the process, he put out some cryptic thing on Instagram with some emojis and people tried to decipher it. And I think he kind of got off on that. Like, oh, all I have to do is do nothing, like post a little nothing on Instagram or TikTok and people will talk and try to interpret it all day. Like, yeah, they will because nothing else is going on. And I think he kind of just liked intermittently giving people like me something fodder that was really meaningless. And I don't think he was as upset as he made it seem. So if the Niners give him that reasonable offer, I don't know if they've upped their offer, but they offer him $28 million a year. I would expect he'd accept it and he'll be practicing tomorrow. If not, then I want to know like what's going on here. Because I don't think Brandon Ayuk is as serious as Trent. I don't think Brandon Ayuk is holding in, going to practices, not going to meetings, just so he can say, I'm not going to play for a penny less than $30 million a year. Isn't that the whole like symbolic act of holding in? Like, here, I'm ready to talk. I'm ready to negotiate. I'm ready to compromise, meet in the middle, or meet closer to your side. I mean, it's not a very demanding position. It's like, hey, we're still cool, right? I know I requested a trade, but like I said, you still like me, right? We're still friends, right? We still talk. So if it's not done today or tomorrow, I'm starting to wonder, like, is the Trent Williams thing taking precedent now? Like, is the money they thought they had, is the money that was earmarked for Brandon Ayuk potential extension now going to Trent? Because it seemed like Ayuk was saying, I'm worth $30 million a year. Okay, in that case, you're saying you're the second most important player on the team after Bosa financially. And you can see Trent being like, no. I'm worth that much money. I want $28 million a year. I want $30 million a year because I am the best in my position. You're not. So if you're trying to do this power play on the organization, like I'll do the same one and do it better because you telegraphed your past, Brandon. You told everyone what you're going to do. They drafted 2 wide receivers. They have weapons. They can survive without you. They can't survive without me. I am the offensive line. I'm the whole thing. So if Brandon doesn't sign his extension today or tomorrow, I'm starting to wonder if Trent Williams took it from him or held it up. And again, like, how much time is Brandon going to miss? How much time is Trent going to miss? They're both pretty important. Trent clearly more important. But like, they couldn't win the Super Bowl last year with Brandon having his best year where he was at every practice, OTAs, minicamp, training camp, MVP you remember camp reports last year? Every day, Brandon Ayuk caught 5 passes. Brandon Ayuk was unstoppable. You heard Chris Forster this week, like, yeah, Trent generally practices 2 out of the 3 days in training camp. He needs it. It makes him better. So if he practices none of the days in training camp, if Brandon Ayuk misses another week, what are they going to be this year? Are they going to be? It just feels like this team isn't shaping up to be as good as last year. It's a lot of the same players, but it's not necessarily the same preparation, attitude, vibe, all those very important concrete things that exist. That's the story at training camp. It just feels like there's just malaise. Like, man, Trent Williams isn't even here. Ugh. It's not like, oh, guys, we have this special team. I can't wait to get on the field. Like, Trent Williams is holding us hostage. Our best player, our leader, the guy we look up to, he's playing games with our front office. Wow. It's got to be a sinking feeling knowing that one guy can sink the whole team and is threatening to. Trent's a good guy. Yeah, he's 10 years older than everyone on the team, but he wants to be here. Rome gut level says, you didn't answer my super. We need to know. Well, hold on. Bro, what would it take for Jed to move off Kyle? I love that question. How about this? Jed pays Brock. Kyle continues to not invest in offensive line. Brock gets hurt. Or Kyle doesn't give Brock any ownership of the offense, doesn't let him suggest plays, call plays, set protections, treats him like the rookie he was. And Brock, who is now making $55-60 million a year, isn't quiet anymore and has a platform to say, I'm unhappy. I would like to be given more ownership and stake in this offense. And there's he's not afraid to say things like that to his teammates, right? Tell him to shut up. What if he stands up to Kyle after he's paid? Not before. That'd be silly to do it before. But after he's paid, and Jed has to make a decision like, oh, this is kind of, their relationship is a little on ice. Kyle thinks he's more important than my quarterback that I just gave a record amount of guaranteed money to and a signing bonus to. Like, no. I'm more invested in Brock now than I am in Kyle. That's when it happens. If it looks like they're not necessarily in lockstep, the quarterback and the head coach, and Jed has to choose, and he's going to choose the freaking quarterback, as he should. And then you could trade Kyle, and you could get a lot. So I guess it's probably a couple years down the line, but if it's 10 years and he hasn't won a Super Bowl and they've paid Brock and something's going sideways with that, will they really let Kyle get a new quarterback, or will they get someone else to make it work with Brock? That's possible. Sorry for missing that. Ricky Williams. Who has more pressure this camp season, BA or Pretty Ricky? Who has more pressure? Ricky. That's why I think Ricky's going to be one of the more interesting storylines in camp, because he's under so much pressure. He already pulled his hamstring. It's like, hey, no pressure, Ricky, but we really don't want to pay Brandon Ayuk that much money. So go out and just show that you're like almost as good as him. We're going to give you all these reps. And if you show that you're almost as good as him, you might start for us. So as opposed to like, hey, Rook, no pressure, get your feet wet, you're not going to be playing for a while. Like, no, like all the pressure. Brandon's not even out there. That's what I would say. Dumbest take of the year award goes to Grant Cohn. Thank you. A lot of people I want to thank. Bacon and eggs breakfast croissant. Bacon and eggs breakfast croissant. I like a bacon and egg. You need a little cheese on there. I'm more of an egg McMuffin kind of guy though. And my question is an egg McMuffin bad for you? How could it be? It's a English muffin, like a microwaved egg, some American cheese, and Canadian bacon. Like, that's healthy, right? I can go to McDonald's and get that and feel relatively guilt-free. No? Like, I wouldn't eat a McDonald's hamburger. That's crazy. You don't know where that meat's been, but pause. But that egg McMuffin is like, give me 2 of those, please. And a hash brown. Anyway, stay away from the swine, he said. Okay, it's 9:20. I'm out of things to talk about. The Niners are off. Let's see what happens. Does Brandon Ayuk sign tomorrow? Does Trent Williams sign tomorrow? Ideally, team wants their team their first day of pads, right? That would be a big. Imagine you get a notification tonight. Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk both signed extensions. You'd be happy. You wouldn't say like, "Oh, Niners are stupid for giving them money." You'd say, "Whole team's there. Day 1 pads. Super Bowl. Let's go." That'd be a huge boost of morale to a team that seems kind of flat. No one's really talking about that, because how do you measure it? People are talking about which backup cornerback looks the best, but the team looks kind of flat. So does that change tomorrow? We'll see. We stay tuned.